Jiao Wuya was very angry in his heart. An extreme anger rose in his heart, and he burst into anger. In the last second, he was still high, and even the Saint Lord level had to nod at him. But in the next second, he was violently overturned and almost fell a dog to eat, and this huge gap made him really unacceptable. And the culprit of all this is because of Su Chang'e. It's just a small transparent, how dare you be so horizontal? He looked at Su Chang'e with gloomy eyes and roared angrily, "Hey, Shao. Transparent, are you going to grab a task with this seat? Return the Hanzi?" The Tao One Holy Lord was amused in his heart, and looked at Jiao Wuya with complicated eyes. "You are just a miscellaneous servant, and if it weren't for the fact that you are a miscellaneous servant of the Tai Xian Dao sect just now, this seat would not even be able to bird you. I didn't expect you to really think of yourself as an onion." Hearing Jiao Wuya's roar, Su Chang'e glanced at him and immediately said coldly, "It's just to rob you of the task. How, do you have an opinion?" In Su Chang'e's opinion, except for Chu Shui, everyone else in Tiantai Peak deserves to die, and they can't wait to rob them of all their opportunities. Jiao Wuya also sensed the eyes of the Tao One Saint Lord at this time, and suddenly felt that his face was hot, shy, and angry, pointing at Su Chang'e's nose and scolding, "Shao Transparent, you are looking for death." Yo, annoyed into angry? Su Chang'e sneered and said, "If you really have the courage, then make a move on me." Jiao Wuya snorted coldly, "I won't make a move. You are a little transparent. Killing you, and I have dirty hands." Without waiting for Su Chang'e to reply, he directly waved his hand towards the guardian on the side. "Uncle Sun, destroy him." Boom. The protector pulled out his sword, and the surrounding space suddenly began to break, like a fragile mirror, exploding inch by inch. The guardian was also angry in his heart. This time out of the sect, he was honored as a guest by the Tao One Holy Lord. And he was originally fine, but Su Chang'e's little transparent suddenly stepped in sideways and defeated his face in front of so many people. Men can endure, who can't bear it? Click. The protector slashed out, and the heavy knife chi smashed the layers of space, carrying a bloodthirsty killing intent, straight to Su Chang'e's face. Suddenly, the Tao One Holy Lord and many people from the Tao One Holy Land turned pale with fright, and the corners of their mouths twitched. Is this the Hidden World Great Sect? There was an infighting if they didn't agree with each other. What a arrogance! Seeing this knife slash, Su Chang'e's face did not change, looked directly at Jiao Wuya, and said in a deep voice, "Okay, then I won't make a move, just let my maid show you both hands." Since she woke up her memory, she hasn't made a move, and right now, Su Chang'e doesn't mind letting her destroy these two fools who are in the way. "Yes, Gongzi." Su Lianyue took a step, her eyes turned golden, and a breath burst out violently and swept away. This breath was like a vast and boundless river of stars, and terrifying. Fluctuations swept through the hall, rising up and soaring straight into the sky. A silver light rose from her hand. It was the heavenly sword. The sharp blade was like autumn frost. Suddenly, like lightning, a sword cut out the air, exploded like thunder. Sensing this breath, the protector's face immediately changed, and he hurriedly withdrew his hand and said, Saint. Sting, Lala." Su Lianyue didn't talk the slightest nonsense with him. The heavenly sword was majestic, thin and sharp. A sword slashed at his big knife, and suddenly Mars splashed, like slashing on tofu, instantly cutting the big knife into two halves, and then pushing all the way, straight and slicing on the protector's door. Poof! Blinding blood splattered down the hall. The entire body of the Tao protector was split abruptly, turned into two, and fell to the ground with a bang, and he whimpered. Shoo! I grass. Read more novels for free on our website, tinyurl.com/2aa54z8b. It is worthy of being a close disciple of the Peak Master, and there is a saint to protect his way when he goes out. The Tao One Holy Lord was so frightened that he took 3 breaths of cold breath, and his shocked internal organs were trembling. How powerful is the saint who defends his way? Many other people from the Tao One Holy Land opened their mouths wide, staring at all this blankly, and their jaws almost dropped. This close disciple is so arrogant, there are saints following him when he goes out, that's awesome. Here, when Zhao Wuya saw his protector being killed in one face, his heart was shocked and shocked. You made, he couldn't believe it. How could it be? How could it be? How could there be a saint level made around this little transparent? It's impossible to kill you. Suchanga looked at him coldly and said in a deep voice, I just said to Rob. You have the task, do you have an opinion? No opinion, no opinion. Zhao Wuya's shocked teeth were trembling, and he almost couldn't help crying. How is this possible with a saint level made with her? If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he wouldn't have wanted to believe it. By now, what has no face, what is annoyed into anger, it is all unimportant. And there is no opinion directly. It's good if you don't have an opinion. Suchanga walked towards him step by step, looked down at his pale and frightened face, and said, There are saints around me who follow this matter. And I hope you can help me keep it secret. Yes, I will definitely help you keep it secret. Zhao Wuya nodded like garlic. Although I don't know why I want to keep it secret, it must be right. Suchanga's tone suddenly became a little heavier. I want you to keep it a secret forever. Zhao Wuya's face instantly turned pale, and he nodded subconsciously, yes, I will always keep it secret. Always keep it secret. The voice just fell. Suchanga waved his hand at Lear, do it. Ugh. A silver-white sword light flashed, and Zhao Wuya's head was directly cut off, tumbling and flying out. When he was about to die, his eyes widened, and the last thought flashed in his mind, it turns out that this is a secret forever. Soon, his head slammed to the ground, and he was lifeless. The Tao First Saint Lord was very discerning, and immediately ordered, Come. Get these 2 garbage corpses out. Yes. Dozens of disciples stepped forward and collected the bodies of Zhao Wuya and his Tao protectors in the blink of an eye. Then a bucket of clean water was splashed to wash the ground clean. Then, the Tao One Holy Lord handed over his hand and said, Senior, please take a seat. Suchanga glanced at the throne and said, I have a cleanliness fetish. Others have sat down, I am dirty. Tao. Saint Lord's heart trembled twice, and he hurriedly said, It's the junior. Who is abrupt, who is that, move a chair that no one has ever sat on. Yes. Someone immediately took out a brand new golden seat and respectfully asked Changa to sit down. Suchanga did not be polite with them, the big horse golden knife sat down. And then scanned the audience, his eyes were bright, and he shouted, Tell me about the problems you encountered. P.S. The little author has always written books crisply and neatly, never dragging mud and water. You big guys should also feel it through the words. Between the lines, the text is very smooth and fluent, dashing, neat, the plot. Progress is not delayed, right? The First Holy Lord of the Tao respectfully gave a big salute and said, Senior, things are just like what I wrote to Guizhong in my letter, that read, blooded ancient clan is a wealthy family, with a long history, domineering and unscrupulous, arrogantly saying that the spiritual veins discovered by the juniors are theirs, indiscriminately, and brazenly beating the disciples of the juniors. Decide for us. Speaking of this, tears rolled in the eyes of the Tao One Holy Lord, and he couldn't stop flowing down. Suchanga looked at the disciples of these Taoist holy lands in the main hall. I saw that some of their heads were bleeding and wrapped in gauze, some of their eyes were beaten out, and some of their chests were sunken, standing there wailing in pain, very miserable and lonely. The Tao One Holy Lord continued, last night, the patriarch of the red blood ancient clan spoke ruthlessly with me, threatening the junior, so that the junior must go to the Swallowing Cloud Mountain range tomorrow night to fight. If he doesn't go, the consequences will be serious. Suchanga couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. To be overbearing to this extent? What is the difference between this and waiting in the playground after school? In a previous life? A bitterness swept at the corner of Daoi Holy Lord's mouth, and he said, Senior, it's better for you to stay in the Holy Land tonight. The junior has already prepared a wine banquet for you. Take the wind and wash the dust for you, and then ask you to come over tomorrow night. Suchanga nodded. Not long after, a reception feast began. During the banquet, the Tao One Holy Lord welcomed warmly, took out the century-old wine jade liquid of the Holy Land to feast Suchanga, and all kinds of mountain and sea delicacies were served together. There are also white-skinned and beautiful maids dancing, and their beautiful bodies twist, blooming seductive dancing postures. Soon, the moon was on the willows, and it was late at night. Suchanga ate a hot sweat, burped, and said, I'm done eating, go out and blow the wind. The First Holy Lord of the Tao threw up his hand and said, I will arrange your accommodation in a moment. Suchanga nodded, then walked out of the living room and walked towards a mountain. Su Xianyue was by his side. The two soon arrived at the top of the mountain and sat down, a fresh breeze blowing, cool and wanton. Seeing that there was no one here, Su Lianyue approached Suchanga a few points, and whispered in his ear, Gongzi, do you feel that this place is very abnormal? Spooky. Suchanga's heart moved. What's wrong? Did you detect something? Su Xianyue thought for a while, but she couldn't say it. This feeling is very strange. Isn't it strange that this place is shrouded in black fog, resembling magic smoke, but it is a holy place? I can't say it, it just feels very wrong. She thought for a long time, never able to capture where this feeling came from. Suchanga patted her back and said, Don't be afraid, I'm here. Su Xianyue lowered her head shyly, and a feeling of emotion arose in her heart. Oh yes, Suchanga suddenly remembered something, took out a storage ring. Took out a Tao scripture from it and handed it to Su Lianyue. You can take this exercise book to practice. This is exactly the 9 Tribulations Rotation Sutra that was found from the 3 people in the law enforcement hall. Su Lianyue's eyes lit up, and she said softly, Gongzi, you are so good to me. She has awakened her memory. There are many terrifying exercises in her mind. But those exercises are too strong, they can only be cultivated at the level of saints. She now only has a divine soul, is a saint's divine soul, and the real cultivation is far from restoring the saint. If she cultivates rashly, the flesh cannot bear it, and the consequences are unimaginable. What are you and me polite about? Suchanga waved his hand, and the wind was light. Su Lianyue lowered her head shyly and said, Gongzi is right, suddenly. She suddenly thought, as if a deer was as delicate, her cheeks were red, and she said intermittently, Lianer thought. I want Gongzi to hug me, but may I? Read more novels for free on our website, tinyurl.com/2aa54z8b. Suchunga smiled generously, stretched out his arm to take her into his arms, and said, You don't have to be polite, why are you still so polite? The sudden happiness made Su Lianyue a little flattered, and her little face suddenly turned red to her neck, and she didn't speak again. She buried her head in Suchunga's arms, and at this moment, she felt that she was extremely happy, and a trace of ripples appeared in her heart. Suchunga suddenly felt a warmth coming from his arms, and when he looked down, he found that Lianer was crying at an unknown time. Mercy, what's wrong with you? No, I just remembered the tragic experience in this life, and then was saved by Gongzi, and my heart was moved, and now I feel Gongzi's warm embrace touching the scene, that's why, Su. Lianyue's eyes welled up with tears. Speaking of this, she suddenly stretched out her arms and hugged Suchunga's waist tightly. Gongzi, I'm afraid that one day I will lose you. I'm so afraid, please don't leave me, Su. Chunga carefully wiped away her tears and said, Don't worry, I won't. Su Xianyue's eyes were red. At this moment, in Suchunga's mind, the system subsidy arrived. Ding. You sent a Shan-level exercise 9 Tribulations Rotation Sutra, and the tens of billions of subsidies took effect, triggering an excess critical attack. This excess critical attack multiplier, 518,000 times. Congratulations to the host for obtaining Solar Heart Sutra. Solar Heart Sutra? Suchunga's heart moved, and he immediately looked at the system space. I saw a simple and heavy Tao scripture floating there, with a rich and flawless Tao rhyme around it, exuding a vicissitudes and ancient turbid atmosphere, vast and deep. He glanced at Xiaoyu again, and saw that Xiaoyu was still in human form. Closed his eyes, and sat cross-kneeled there, to precipitate his cultivation. With the precipitation, the breath on her body became deeper and deeper, like a vast starry sky. The breath was restrained, deep and vast. After all, 4,850 trillion spirit stones were absorbed at one time, which was too much, and it took more time to precipitate. I wonder what this scripture does. Suchunga took his gaze away from Xiaoyu and looked at the Tao Sutra. At the next moment, the system sound sounded. Sun Heart Sutra, Heaven-level exercises. In ancient times, an ancient mighty person tore through the universe, took out a grain of yang from the center of the sun, fused his own blood, and engraved it into this ancient Taoist scripture, divided into 48 layers. If you cultivate to the top level, you can transform into a congenital fire body. The flesh is like a great sun flame, and the breath is pure and masculine. Innate gung fire body? Suchunga was stunned, and he was overjoyed. The beautiful master once told him that there was a special constitution in this world called the body of the 5 elements. The reason why it is called the body of the 5 elements is because this constitution is subdivided into 5 types. They are the innate fire body, the body of innate water, innate Gingjin body, the body of innate earth, the body of innate Gingmu. Among these 5 physiques, the innate Ginghua body is the strongest, far ahead of the other 4 physiques. Those who possess the body of the fire are like ovens and torches. Once cast, the surface of the body will ignite with a great flame. The whole person is like a walking torch, the breath is pure and masculine, and the body is surging with a mighty manhood, which is extremely sacred. Good stuff. Suchunga's eyes shone brightly, and then he immediately cultivated As soon as his mind moved, in the system space, the Sun Heart Sutra automatically opened, and a pure golden particle beam flashed, directly disappearing into his mind. Suchanga suddenly felt that a stream of mysteries was like a great river, rushing, all transmitted into his mind. In an instant, the mysteries and meanings rolled in his mind, like a river, rushing, continuously, and endlessly. Phew. Suchanga took a deep breath and carefully experienced the truth and truth contained in the Sun Heart Sutra. The principles of the Sun Heart Sutra are completely different from other exercises that have been practiced before, and the principles in this are extremely complex, and each word echoes the previous word, intertwining and changing. For a while, in his mind, endless Tao and reason were intertwined, producing various changes, making his eyes become radiant and radiant with wisdom. Since he is a clean body, his receiving ability is naturally far beyond ordinary people, especially in terms of absorbing drugs and comprehension exercises, and he is even more incredible. So soon. First floor. Second layer. Third layer. Fifth floor. 10th floor. 15th floor. 20th floor. 30 floors. 40th floor. 48th floor. In just a short moment, Suchanga fully understood all the Tao and principles contained in the Sun Heart Sutra, transformed his physique, and successfully transformed into a congenital Gonghua body. The innate fire body and the unscaled body are not in conflict, and the two can exist at the same time. This is thanks to the unscaled body, which belongs to the all-powerful body, and can fit all the special constitutions of the world. With the transformation of his physique, a layer of pure gold to red, like flowing magma, suddenly appeared on Suchanga's body surface, and the whole person was like a big sun oven. His breath soared, and he was masculine and pure. This Gongzi, you. At this time, Su Lianyue also suddenly sensed that Gongzi's arms were warmer, and fixed her eyes, only to find that it was fire and magma. But this magma is not hot, but makes people feel extremely gentle. She buried her head in Suchanga's arms, feeling warm all over her body, as if she was sunbathing. This feeling made her very obsessed. For a while, she couldn't help but hug Suchanga a few more points. Boom. Suchanga was like a big sun flame, a pure masculine momentum swept out. Vast, shining all over the world, like the scorching sun, the fluctuations. Like the scorching sun shattered the black fog shrouded in the mountain, emitting a corrosive sound that turned into powder. Huh? The Dowie Holy Lord, who was waiting in the living room to clean up the dishes and chopsticks, was far away, and also sensed this mighty and holy fluctuation, and suddenly his heart jumped, and he was shocked. It turned out to be a congenital Gonghua body, worthy of being a person of the hidden world. Powerful, really powerful. And beside him, there were also some disciples here, and at this moment, they sensed that masculine and pure fluctuation. All of them were shocked and stunned. The same people. Why is this gap so big? Boom. On the top of the mountain, as the aura skyrocketed, Suchanga's cultivation also skyrocketed. Divine Gang Realm, broken. Divine Power Realm 1 Heaven. Read more novels for free on our website, tinyurl.com/2AA54Z8B. Divine Power Realm, Triple Heaven. Divine Power Realm 5 Heavens. Divine Power Realm 7 Heavens. Divine Power Realm 9 Heavens. Cultivation soared 9 realms in succession, and this was able to stop. After the breakthrough of call, Suchanga let out a long breath of turbid breath, only felt that his ears were clear, there was a new sense of transformation, and a little wisdom overflowed in his eyebrows, and the whole person was refreshed and full of spirit. Gongzi, your body is warm, hold it so warm, Su. Xianyue's voice sounded in her arms. Su Lianyue's feeling at this time was as if she was in the warm winter sun. And her body was extremely warm. She became more and more obsessed with Suchanga. Suchanga touched her little head and said affectionately, "It's good if you like it." Immediately, his mind moved, and the magma on his body surface disappeared, recovering as before. But the masculine aura like the flame of the sun did not disappear, lingering around him, continuously. Suddenly, there was a hearty long laugh in the distance, before the flower. And under the moon, beautiful people accompany, "It's good to be young, Su." Chang'e turned his head and saw that it was the Tao One Holy Lord, and he smiled. "What's wrong, have you arranged a place to live?" The Tao One Holy Lord handed over his hand and said, "It has been arranged for the senior, please come with me." "Good." Su Chang'e got up and led Su Lianyue to leave here. Under the guidance of the first Holy Lord of Tao, the two quickly arrived in front of a Qiong tower. Qionglu is about 100 feet tall, light and elegant, exuding a gentleman's atmosphere. The juniors retreat. The first Holy Lord pushed open the door for Su Chang'e, and then left respectfully. Su Chang'e stepped into it, and saw that the windows here were clear, clean, and tidy. All kinds of utensils were neatly placed, and precious onyx night pearls were hung everywhere on the walls, shining with moonlight like light. Very warm and healing. This is all carefully arranged, and it can be seen that the Tao One Holy Lord is very attentive. There are a total of 2 rooms in the Qiong building, which are also carefully arranged by the Tao One Holy Lord. He only knows that Su Lianyue is Su Chang'e's maid, and he doesn't know the real relationship. He is afraid of not being well treated, so he specially prepared 2 rooms. Su Lianyue saw that there were 2 rooms, and her eyes moved, and she guessed something. A shy blush appeared on her cheeks. She lowered her head, and said intermittently, Gongzi, Lear is used to being with you at night, and now she wants to separate, a little. Su Chang'e was not a pretentious person, naturally agreed, and said, "Okay, then. We will live together." Squeak dash. He pushed open one of the rooms, and took Su Lianyue to live in. One night without words, in the blink of an eye. Early the next morning, someone came to deliver the meal, and Su Chang'e finished breakfast, and when he had nothing to do, he walked around the Daoi Holy Land. At the end of the day, he was surprised to find that even during the day, under the scorching sun, there was still a thick black fog, shrouded in black fog, like a dark cloud cover, and getting thicker and thicker, and there was an unusual aura everywhere in the air. As for the layers of black fog that had been shattered by himself last night, it had recovered as before, and it seemed to heal automatically. This is so weird. Thinking of what the Dark Soul Emperor said was fraudulent, he felt that his trip did not seem to be so simple. But how could he be afraid? Soldiers come to block, water comes to cover, there is nothing to be afraid of. Time passed slowly, and in the blink of an eye, it was evening. At this time, the Tao One Saint Lord drove a white jade agarwood chariot to Qionglu. The chariot is pulled by 6 unicorn-like beasts, with rolling clouds of fire and thousands of divine radiance, and the specifications are extremely high. "Senior, the appointed time has arrived, please." Su Chang'e walked out of the Qiong building and took Su Lianyue into the white jade car. Then, the Tao One Holy Lord personally acted as a horseman, cut through the long sky, and headed towards the swallowing cloud mountain range. The chariot crossed the void, all the way to the west, speeding away. Along the way, the clouds roll, leaving behind a brilliant glow. In the chariot, Suchonga's eyebrows gradually raised, and he felt that something was wrong. I vaguely remember that the beautiful master once told me that the swallowing Cloud Mountain Range is the easternmost part of the eastern region, close to the coast of the East China Sea. How did this go to the west? He was skeptical, but he didn't ask. Maybe it's the mountain range of the same name. Gongzi, Su Lianyue gripped his hand tightly, reluctant to let go. Not long after, a holy lord's voice came from outside the chariot. Senior. It's here. So soon? Suchonga's eyebrows raised again. It was clear that it had not been long since I left. How did this arrive? How could it be so fast? He looked outside and asked, what's going on? I remember that the swallowing Cloud Mountain Range is not thousands of miles away from this. How did it arrive so soon? The Dao One Saint Lord smiled heartily. You don't know something. This is a mountain range with the same name, which is different from the cloud swallowing mountain range on the coast of the East China Sea. Suchonga didn't ask again. Immediately, the Dao One Saint Lord drove the chariot and fell into the clouds. Suchonga opened the curtains and looked down. I saw a huge mountain range below, like a big snake stretching across the vast earth, stretching for thousands of miles. At this time, at the top of the mountain, a large group of people stood there, erupting with a violent ferocious anger and murderous spirit around them. Suchonga glanced at them, and saw that there were thousands of them. Each of them was strong and burly, holding a big knife, fierce and vicious. And among them stood a gray-haired old man, surrounded by tsunami-like aura fluctuations, extremely thick. Before the chariot fell, they could be heard roaring from afar. Then what kind of shit is a holy place? Why hasn't it come yet? Don't you dare to come. Don't say it, it's very possible. What a cowardly guy. I didn't expect that the Lord of the Holy Land was a greedy and fearful of death. A bunch of sluggish rat generation. Rat. The roar continued, mixed with a sneer. The Dao One Saint Lord looked down at the top of the mountain and explained. That's the Red Blood Ancient Clan, and that white-haired old man is their patriarch. Suchonga nodded. Soon, the chariot landed steadily on the top of the mountain. The white-haired old man's eyes lit up, and he immediately burst into a sneer. Yo, Dao One Holy Lord, I didn't expect you to really dare to come. We thought you weren't coming, they were all ready to kill your lair. The family disciples behind him snorted coldly. It's better to come, what a shit. Holy Lord, it's just a false name. Lao Tzu can slash you with a sword. Yes. Hack him to death. Hack him to death. Thousands of people from the Red Blood Ancient Clan erupted in encouragement. Facing this 1,000 fingers, the Dao One Holy Lord smiled coldly and said, This seat invited a big man to come over today, who is not afraid of death. Just come and cut me. As soon as these words came out, the Red Blood Ancient Clan suddenly burst into laughter. I said, how dare I come to fight? It turns out that someone is backing up. Gee, you are really quite capable. I am so afraid. What kind of big man can you invite from this coward? Just by your holy place of walnuts and dates? Pull the calf and go. I'm going to cut you today. What can you do with Lao Tzu? Big brother, don't talk nonsense with him. Hack him to death. Sting. A strong man from the Red Blood Ancient Clan pulled out his sword and burst out, and the fierce knife intent erupted, blatantly slashing at the head of the Dao One Saint Lord. The first holy lord of the Tao was not afraid of danger, raised his hand to lift the curtain of the chariot, and respectfully said, "Senior, please get out of the horse." Read more novels for free on our website, tinyurl.com/2aa54z8b. Suchanga answered, walked out of the chariot without hurrying, held up the identity token, scanned the audience, and said coldly, "I see who dares to move." Huh? The strong man of the Red Blood Ancient clan was stunned, and after seeing the token, his face changed instantly. The other clansmen of the Red Blood Ancient clan also all chuckled in their hearts. Big guy. It turned out to be the big man of the Taishan Dao sect. Xiao Lauer had no eyes just now, and the crime deserves death. The white-haired old man took the lead in lowering his head, not daring to look directly at Suchanga's gaze. Bang bang, many clansmen of the Red Blood Ancient clan, who were still showing their might just now, threw their weapons on the ground one after another, and then raised their hands, not daring to move. Little Lauer has no eyes, he collided with the big guy, and he is willing to offer the supreme treasure in the clan to apologize, and ask the big guy not to see the same as the little old man. The white-haired old man took out a relic that was as red as blood from his arms and respectfully handed it to Suchanga. Suchanga looked down and saw that this object was about half the size of a fist, crystal clear, like a ruby, extremely extraordinary. And at this time, the Tao One Saint Lord also came over, and said with a red face, "Senior, as soon as you come out, the problems encountered by the junior will be solved in an instant, thank you so much. This is the 10 directions. Town Prison Sutra, please also ask the seniors to accept it, and I hope you will take more care of the younger ones in the future." Suchanga was overjoyed in his heart. It turned out that this was what the Dark Soul Emperor said to solve without much effort. It was solved in a word, and then these 2 treasures were obtained, just like picking them up for nothing. It was really easy. To be honest, I really didn't expect that things could be solved so easily. Which was really unexpected. Looking at it this way, then Zhao Wuya was really lucky enough to receive such an easy task, but unfortunately he let himself pick up a bargain in the end. He took these 2 treasures in his hand and said, "Then I will accept it." "Thanks, guy." Tao One Holy Lord's face was full of red light. The white-haired old man and all the red-blooded ancient clans clasped their fists one after another, and their attitude was very respectful. "Okay, since the matter has been settled, let's go back." Suchanga returned to the chariot. "Yes, senior." The first holy lord of the Tao drove the chariot and took off into the air. It didn't take long to successfully return to the Doichi Holy Land. The chariot fell to the ground, and immediately a large group of disciples rushed up with smiles on their faces, and welcomed them in the way. Su Lianyue reminded in a low voice, "Gongzi, let's leave quickly, I always feel strange here, Su." Chang'e nodded, and immediately said outward, "The matter has been resolved. Then I should also leave, goodbye. The opportunity has been successfully cut off, and he still has business to do, so naturally it is impossible to waste time here." The first holy lord of the Tao sincerely retained, "Senior, don't worry, you helped the junior so much. If you leave now, the junior will not care in his heart, because this is not the way of hospitality. The junior has ordered people to put down a celebration banquet, and I hope you can appreciate it." He invited him so warmly, Suchanga was embarrassed to resign, so he had to agree. Soon, surrounded by a large number of disciples and maids, Suchanga and Su Lianyue were invited to a luxurious living room. The table in the living room is already filled with a variety of delicious dishes, exuding white heat. Senior, please. The Holy Lord of the Way is warmly welcomed. Suchanga was not pretentious, and sat down in the upper seat with peace of mind. Just as the feast was about to begin, suddenly, a coquettish voice outside sounded, "Holy Lord, how can this feast for seniors be less than me?" A young woman walked in from the doorway. Suchanga looked at her and saw her snow-skinned appearance, slender figure, two big white legs as white and silky as lotus root, beautiful face, and flaming red lips. What a nice person. Ha ha ha, Yuner, I almost forgot you. The doughy Holy Lord looked at her with a smile, and then introduced Suchanga. This is the holy daughter under the junior seat, named Nangong Yuner, which made the senior laugh. Suchanga said with a smile, "It's okay. The slave family serves the seniors to drink." Nangong Yunerlan spat out fragrant tongue. Her voice was coquettish, walked to Suchanga, and poured him a wine glass. When she finished pouring, she sat down next to Suchanga and consciously or unintentionally pasted it towards Suchanga. Su Lianyua's face changed slightly. Su Lianyua sat on the left side of Suchanga, close to his shoulder. Nangong Yuner, on the other hand, sat on the right side of Suchanga, approaching him from time to time, intentionally or unintentionally. Suchanga only felt that the aroma between his nose was offensive. Seeing this scene, Su Xianyua's eyes gradually became cold. It's not because Suchanga hugged left and right, but she felt that Nangong Yuner was very wrong. In her perception, the breath on Nangong Yuner's body was very cold. Indescribably cold, like a deep winter ice edge, as if the blood flowing in her body was cold and cold-blooded. "Gongzi, I will also pour wine for you." Su Lianyue stood up, poured a glass of wine for Suchanga, and delivered it to his mouth. When Suchanga finished drinking, she sat on Suchanga's lap, fell into his arms, and her snow-white wrists hugged Suchanga's neck, as if she was intimate. She is protecting Suchanga. In this way, Nangong Yuner could no longer get closer. Seeing this scene, the Tao One Holy Lord thought of something and said with a smile, "Senior, the maid beside you is jealous." Suchanga didn't expect Lianer to suddenly make such a bold move, but smelling the wonderful fragrance coming from her, he couldn't help but be intoxicated, and also smiled. "No way, it's too handsome, this kind of thing is difficult to avoid." Gongzi, Su Lianyue was so wrong that she hugged his neck with another snow-white jade hand, and her body was completely poured into his arms, and said softly, "Gongzi, people want to have a glass of wine with you." Nangong Yuner's eyes flashed a cold light, but she concealed it well. Suchanga was not a pretentious person, and said with a smile, "Good, good. Come and come." Su Lianyue poured a glass of wine, took a sip of it herself, and then sent it to Suchanga, saying, "Gongzi, please drink the wine that Mercier poured for you." Suchanga opened his mouth and drank it all. The feast went on harmoniously. Time passed slowly, and an hour passed in the blink of an eye. At this time, the banquet was almost over. Su Xianyue's cheeks were crimson, and the whole person was completely hung on Suchanga. Suchanga burped, stood up, and said, "The banquet is over, I won't stay any more, leave." He picked up his child and prepared to leave. The Tao One Saint Lord kindly retained, "Senior, why are you in such a hurry to leave? It's getting late outside, so it's better to stay for another night." Suchanga said, "I can't stay, I still have urgent matters to do." "Urgent?" The first Saint Lord of the Tao suddenly came to the spirit, and said, "Sincerely, I don't know what is urgent about the senior, can I help in the next step? Suchanga naturally couldn't tell him his true purpose, so he said casually. I'm going to find a large demon beast lair to exercise. Kill the demon beast and exercise your body? The Tao One Saint Lord understood, and suddenly his face was full of red light, and he said with a smile, Senior, you are really an auspicious heavenly face. The junior just happened to know a large demon nest, that is a mausoleum of the immortal king. Strong, there are many pythons and monsters in it, they devour the blood of the immortal king, and after a long time, they have become very powerful, and this mausoleum happens to be at the foot of the Junior Holy Land Mountain, at your fingertips, you really have nothing to work on. When Suchanga heard this, his face suddenly turned happy. If there is one under your feet, then why run around and struggle to find it? Immediately smiled and said, the Holy Lord is embarrassed, then Sumao will bother. When the child in her arms heard the word snake demon, her mind flashed and suddenly realized. Read more novels for free on our website, tinyurl.com/2aa54z8b. She finally captured where the slightest feeling that something was wrong came from. She glanced at Namgong Yuner next to her, a fine light flashed in her eyes. And then buried her little head in Suchanga's arms without revealing her voice. Senior is too polite, Dowie Holy Lord bowed his hand, but it's late today. It's better to stay here first, Junior, and then go to the Immortal King's mausoleum tomorrow morning, what do you think? Suchanga nodded and agreed, it is really not easy to do if the lights are blind at night. At this time, Namgong Yuner stepped forward and bent over to salute Su Changa. She was very respectful, her head was cocked, her sultry voice spit out, and she smiled coquettishly, Senior, tomorrow the slave family will lead the way for you, are you optimistic? Suchanga did not refuse. He was not familiar with the mausoleum, but Namgong Yuner must be very familiar with it, and with her leading the way, he was relieved. Soon, there were specially people carrying a large sedan and carrying Su Changa and Su Lianyue to Qionglu. It didn't take long to arrive at Qionglu. The sedan man respectfully retired. In the room, Su Xianyue snuggled into Su Changa's arms, pressed her lips to his ear, and whispered, Gongzi, Namgong Yuner seems to be serpentine demon. It is likely to be a python incarnation, or it may be a seizure. With my current cultivation, I can't urge all the divine souls to perceive, and I can't tell the difference. But just these two, there can be no mistake. Suchanga raised his eyebrows. Then you say, the weirdness here will not come from the snake? It should be, here is shrouded in black clouds, the breath is extremely unusual, it is likely that the snake demon at the foot of the mountain is doing strangeness. Su Xianyue guessed. Suchanga smiled boldly, let's sleep first, you'll know when you go. Tomorrow. Su Lianyue snuggled into his arms, a pair of jade hands hugged his waist tightly, and exhaled like a lawn, Gongzi. Didn't Mercier just now to that? She remembered holding Gongzi's neck just now, and she wanted to drink a glass of wine with him, her cheeks were red and crimson, like blooming flowers. Suchanga picked her up and said with a smile, why, my family's mercy knows. Too much? Su Xianyue's cheeks turned even more crimson, like a completely blooming flower, flushed, but there was also a trace of worry, her lips opened and closed, and said, Gongzi is it? Don't like me? Suchanga didn't answer, just held her tightly in his arms. Gongzi's embrace is so warm, Su Lianyue understood something, her fair and flawless cheeks turned even more crimson, and her snow-white wrist stretched out and rested on Suchanga's neck, holding him firmly once again, intimate. At this moment, she felt the manly breath in front of her, making her infatuated, making her intoxicated, couldn't help but close her eyes, took a deep breath, her body arched slightly, and wanted to kiss his lips. But she didn't have the courage. I'm just a maid, isn't it too much to do this? In her thoughts, she hugged Suchanga tightly, and gradually fell asleep with her fantasy of Gongzi. Time goes by, and the sky is dawning. In the early morning, the Tao First Holy Lord took many disciples under the seat and waited outside the Cheong Tower early. After a tea time, with a creak, Suchanga pushed the door and said, "Go." Behind him, Su Lianyue followed him closely, her cheeks still slightly crimson. Soon, the Tao One Holy Lord took out a flying boat, rose to the size of 10,000. Zhang in the face of the storm, carried everyone, and flew towards the bottom of the mountain. Along the way, the wind is fast. The further down you fly, the thicker the black fog around you becomes, and the darker it is, pitch black as ink, and strange everywhere. Su Lianyue sensed it, and her divine consciousness swept away like a mud cow into the sea, and she couldn't feel anything. She held Suchanga's hand tightly and remained silent. After about a cup of tea, the flying boat successfully arrived and landed on the ground. Suchanga looked up and saw that this was a cliff, and there was a black cave on the front of the cliff, and the screams of pythons were heard from time to time inside. The juniors will only send the seniors here due to the busy affairs of the Holy Land, and then Yunar will lead the way for you. The Holy Lord of the Tao said respectfully. Nangong Yunar walked out. Today she was wearing a red dress with very little fabric, her white skin showed a large area, and said with a smile, "Senior, please come with the slave family." Suchanga nodded. At this moment, behind the Tao One Saint Lord, a young disciple suddenly walked out. He looked at Nangong Yunar's charming figure, a deep fascination and liking appeared in his eyes, and asked, "Holy Lord, the disciple wants to go with Nangong Senior Sister, do you think?" The Tao One Holy Lord looked at him and smiled amiably. "You can go in and experience it, let's go." The young disciple's name is Zhang Baichuan, and he is a true disciple of the Tao One Holy Land. "Thank you, Holy Lord." Zhang Baichuan was overjoyed, and immediately stepped forward and came to Nangong Yunar's side. Nangong Yunar glanced at him, her gaze cold. "Do you think I'm going to pay attention to you?" Without thinking about it, she turned her head to look at Suchanga, smiled, and her icy gaze disappeared, replaced by a touch of admiration for the divine brilliance, shining brightly, like a river of stars. At this time, Su Xianyue also glanced at Zhang Baichuan, and immediately looked at him thoroughly. In perception, Zhang Baichuan is not a snake, but a human. An innocent person. "Gongzi, that young man is a human, he seems to like Nangong Yunar very much," she whispered. Suchanga's mouth twitched secretly. To be honest, if it weren't for Lianer telling him last night that Nangong Yunar was a python, he still felt nothing. But now that he knew this, he looked at Zhang Baichuan and admired his courage. In his heart, Vaz, reckless hero. The juniors retreat. The First Holy Lord drove the flying boat away. After the Tao First Saint Lord left, Nangong Yunar stepped forward, bent down, and saluted. "Senior, there is a thick stone gate about 100 meters from the entrance of the Immortal King's mausoleum, which is extremely strong, and it takes the combined efforts of many cultivators of the heavenly realm to push it open." Suchanga smiled slightly and said, "Why bother? He is wholly in the flesh, and there are 200 million pounds of strength in his body, and the last thing he is afraid of is this kind of solid thing. Immediately, the group entered the cave. Read more novels for free on our website, tinyurl.com/2aa54z8b. As he went deeper, Suchanga could clearly hear the sound of pythons spitting letters from the depths of the mausoleum, croaking, and all kinds of screams. It should be that the pythons were fighting each other. Along the way, Su Lianyue tightly pulled the corner of Suchanga's clothes, like his little woman, following behind him. As for Zhang Baichuan, he strode forward and walked in front of Nangong Yuner, quite a Lingyun arrogance, and said, "Senior sister, you follow me, I will protect you." Nangong Yuner shook her head and did not speak. After walking 100 meters, a stone gate appeared in front of him, standing there like a majestic pass, blocking the way. "Senior, the slave family and you joined forces." Before Nangong Yuner could finish speaking, she saw Suchanga punch out. Boom! Boom! One after another deafening explosions sounded, and the stone gate that was as thick as a majestic closed was blasted open by this punch on the spot, and it was penetrated abruptly, and the stones around the big hole could not withstand this force, were implicated, shattered, and collapsed in a blink of an eye, exploding into powder. This, Nangong Yuner was stunned. He's so good. As soon as this thought crossed her mind, she suddenly looked cold, a touch of caution flashed in her eyes became gloomy, her eyes were bulging. And she didn't know what she was thinking. Zhang Baichuan was also stunned at this time. "I grass, is this the person of the hidden world? What a..." As the stone gate exploded, thick smoke billowed out, and a layer of dust fell on Suchanga's white clothes. "Gongzi." Su Lianyue took out a white and flawless handkerchief and wiped the dust off his body for him. Suchanga could actually use the coercion in his body to shake these dusts away, but Lear was so intimate, he didn't say anything. Nangong Yuner's body was also covered with floating ash, and she was just about to wipe it. Zhang Baichuan suddenly came over, handed over a clean cloth, and said, "Senior sister, take it." Nangong Yuner snorted coldly and flew this cloth directly. Zhang Baichuan touched a nose of ash, not angry, embarrassed to take back the cloth, accompanied by a smile. "Okay, I'll roll." Nangong Yuner's breath in her body shook, and a true chi instantly shook all the dust out. Immediately, the four of them stepped through the stone door and went deeper. P.S. The basis of the small author is 3 changes every day, that is to say, the minimum 3 changes per day. Every day is a state of explosion. Here 2 chapters are punch cards, and 3 chapters are explosive changes. In addition, I bought both of the last Coke, mixed together to drink. It is very good, very refreshing, clear thinking when writing the book, really good. Thank you. If there are any questions in the future, I will ask you again. The little author is a living person and will reply to everyone's comments one by one, unless sometimes too busy to see it. In addition, these 3 days are very important. Please do not keep books during these 3 days. Just these 3 days, it's critical, please. In the gloomy tomb, there is a constant sound of smoldering pythons spitting letters. Through the shimmer, you can vaguely see several blood-red snake letters, flashing blood-colored light in the dark, and white, green, and yellow eyes light up, which are the eyes of pythons. It's the breath of a living person. Ha ha ha, a living person is coming, eat him. Oh, I'm going to suck his blood dry. These pythons devoured the essence blood of the immortal king, and their cultivation was successful, and the snake skin on their bodies had long since transformed into thick scale armor, spitting out words. Senior, they are all heaven realm demon beasts, they are very strong, you need to be careful, reminded Nangon Yuner. Just as she finished speaking, a small section of red long tongue appeared at the corner of her lips, long and pointed, and black eyes appeared greed and longing, and then she inhaled it into her mouth. The action was so fast that no one noticed. Strong? That's great. For me, the stronger they are, the better. These demon beasts were in Suchonga's arms, and he took out the primordial yin-yang mirror to block it in front of him, ready to absorb the energy that burst out of those pythons at any time. Oh, is this human being crazy that dares to speak wildly and look down on us? Kill him. Eat him. I'm going to eat him alive. The pythons were obviously enraged, and terrifying fluctuations erupted, the air exploded, and the space was distorted, crushing towards Suchonga. Buzz. When those attacks came to Suchonga, the space fluctuated, and then fell into nothingness. Immediately after, in Suchonga's mind, a system prompt sounded. Ding. Energy. +1 +1 +1 +1 +1 +1 +1 +1 +1. Ha ha ha, I have to say, it's so cool. Suchonga's face was full of red light, and he rushed to those pythons with a mirror, laughing, come on, hit me. Human, don't be too proud. A huge white giant python was completely enraged, wagging its heavy tail, setting off a hurricane, snorting, and smashing towards Suchonga. Buzz. The tail smashed the mirror, and suddenly a wave of fluctuations came out, and the power of the python's outbreak was absorbed. Ding. Energy +1. Suchonga laughed loudly, do you have this little strength? Again. Roar. The python roared, its tail soared into the sky, like a heavy mountain, and it fell in the air. Buzz. The tail slammed heavily on the mirror, and the power contained in it was absorbed again. The python went crazy. It took a deep breath, swayed its huge body, and slammed into Suchonga in one go. Boom. The powerful force collapsed the space, and the earth was shaking. However useless. With a buzz sound, this power was absorbed again, and Suchonga was unharmed. The python was furious and shouted, let's go together. Boom, boom, boom. Countless huge snake bodies twisted, and the deep attack was accompanied by a fierce force, smashing fiercely. Ding. Energy. Read more novels for free on our website, tinyurl.com/2aa54z8b. +1 +1 +1 +1 +1 +1 +1 +1 +1 +1 +1 +1 +1 +1 +1 +1 +1. After a large wave of attacks, the energy increased by the Taichu Yin-Yang mirror was very huge, adding more than 1,300 energy points. Suchonga didn't have anything. This group of pythons were tired and sweaty. Panting, lying on the ground panting. Are you still energetic? Come again. Suchonga said with a smile. The python gasped heavily, unable to speak. There are thousands of them in this group, and now all their strength has been squeezed dry, and they don't even have the strength to speak. Seeing that they had no use value, Suchonga stepped forward and punched out. Boom. One punch, headshot. Immediately followed. Bang bang bang. Continuous explosions sounded, and Suchonga punched one by one, and soon killed all these pythons. One by one, the python crystal nuclei appeared in a pool of blood, emitting golden light. Mercy, put away all these crystal nuclei. Suchanga turned his head and said. Yes, Gongzi. Su Lianyue stepped forward, waved her palm, and put away these loot one by one. These pythons are all heaven realm demon beasts, and the energy contained in the crystal nucleus is very pure, and a lower belly can improve a large number of cultivation. Suchanga looked at the scattered snake teeth and scale armor on the ground again, and said, by the way, take away those snake teeth and scale armor. Don't waste them. There are a lot of businessmen buying these things. You must know that snake teeth are extremely sharp and can be made into weapons, not to mention scale armor, which can be made into strong armor. After going out, these things can be sold at a good price by finding a random place. I have to say that Suchanga felt that he had simply entered a treasure house. This time, not only can you charge the Dao weapon, but you can also get crystal nuclei and scale armor snake teeth, killing 4 birds with 1 stone. It is simply perfect. On the side, Nangong Yuner looked at him blankly, shocked and fearful in his heart, and his eyes became more and more cautious. As for Zhang Baichuan, he fell into deep self-denial. Nima, Suchanga is only a teenager, but he is a young man in his 20s. People are younger than him, but they are much better than him, and the giant python in the heavenly realm can burst with a punch, and he has to doubt life. After a certain period of time. Boom, boom, boom. Another python group was so tired that it was panting, lying on the ground and unable to move. This is already the 290th ethnic group. During this time, the Taichu Yin-Yang mirror continued to collect energy, and the quantitative change produced qualitative changes, and soon reached the critical point and was successfully filled with energy. That's 10,000 energy points. If this erupts, I don't know how terrifying it will be. You must know that those pythons smashed down with a tail, not to mention tens of millions of caddies of strength. The mirror is enough to absorb 10,000 times, that is, 10,000 tens of millions of caddies of power, very terrifying. Suchanga looked at the mirror, and saw that the mirror surface of the Taichu Yin-Yang mirror changed from white to crimson, and the terrifying divine power contained inside would break out at any time, releasing an incomparable blow. And now, the pythons here have also been cleaned up, dead to death, escape to escape, almost hide when they see him. One runs faster than the other. Suchanga chased after him, punching one by one, and killing them all. He killed in front, Su Lianyue picked it up in the back, and the two cooperated tacitly, and it didn't take long to harvest a pot. Soon, the snake demon here was cleared, and the group also reached the deepest part of the mausoleum. It is a stone room, covered with cobwebs, the smell of dust is on the face, and there is a lot of rain under the feet. In the position of the stone room against the wall, a bronze coffin bottle is suspended quietly there, exuding the atmosphere of simple vicissitudes. This is that immortal king's coffin, there should be treasures in it. Suchanga looked at the bronze coffin, and a flash of joy flashed in his eyes. P.S. There is still later. Today I still choose to explode. I don't know if you readers have any opinions? The coffin is very quaint, and if you are far away, you can clearly feel an ancient breath rushing to your face. Suchanga didn't talk nonsense, and walked straight forward, ready to lift the lid of the coffin. Suddenly, his mind flashed, and he turned his head and asked Nangong Yuner, "Have you touched this coffin in your holy place?" This is at the foot of the Daoi Holy Land mountain, so there is a high probability that they have already collected the treasures in the coffin. Nangong Yuner shook her head and said bitterly, "No, this coffin is the place where the immortal king is buried, and we juniors dare not open it, for fear of encountering danger." Suchanga smiled with satisfaction. Don't you dare, I dare. Bang! He slapped his palm on the coffin, and the heavy lid of the coffin suddenly flew up, setting off a sonic boom in the air and smashing heavily on the ground. Suddenly, beams of golden particle light erupted from the coffin, and in an instant, the stone chamber was radiant and dazzling. Suchanga looked at it, and saw a skeleton lying on his back in the coffin. All the flesh and blood on his body had been swallowed clean by the snake demon, leaving only Sinsen white bones. As for the robe on his body, it had long been decayed and tattered, and he couldn't recognize the original appearance. And beside him, there are all kinds of shining treasures, including colorful gemstones, powerful Dao weapons, knives, swords, guns, halberds, each of which is a divine weapon. The lowest is Xian level start, very strong. It can be seen that this immortal king was a mighty figure before his death. But after his death, he was destroyed into this picture. Gongzi. Su Lianyue touched Jing with affection, and a hot stream flowed out of her eyes. Although she was a saint in her previous life, she was not an immortal body. And sooner or later she would be like this immortal king, exhausted her life. Yuan and enter death. But in this life, Suchanga gave her immortal blood, and she has transformed into an immortal body, living with the sky, and immortal. This made her very moved, tears slipped down. If it weren't for the others here, she would have been unable to control her emotions, threw herself into Suchanga's arms, and cried. Suchanga hugged her into his arms and comforted her, then looked at Namgong, Yunar and Zhang Baichuan, and asked in a deep voice, I swept this demon beast's lair, I want all the treasures, are you okay? Nope. No comment. Namgong Yunar and Zhang Baichuan said in unison. With such a strong strength, who dares to have an opinion? Suchanga nodded, and immediately looked at the bones in the coffin, and said, Senior, I don't take your things in vain, these things are buried here. They will only be dusted by pearls. In return, I will transfer your bones to other places for proper burial, so that you will never be destroyed by demon beasts again. That's what he intended. Treasures are used for use, not buried here and slowly decayed. And this immortal king has been dead for many years, and only white bones have been destroyed in the flesh, and the biggest wish in the underworld should be to be able to enter the earth for peace. Alas! Suddenly, a long sigh sounded in the coffin. This long sigh seems to come from eternity, extremely ancient, long vicissitudes accompanied by liberation. Read more novels for free on our website, tinyurl.com/2AA54Z8b. Then, a vast coercive pressure swept out, and those divine weapons soared. Halberds automatically levitated, filled with ancient mottled aura, and came to Suchanga's eyes. Senior, did you agree? He understood it, collected these treasures one by one, and then began to collect the treasures in the coffin. Since the number of treasures was too much, occupying half of the coffin, he didn't have time to look at them one by one, and put them in the storage ring. Finally, he began to collect the remains of this immortal king. Soon, he felt a little mad, because the inside of the remains of this immortal king was actually sucked by the demon beast, and the bone became extremely fragile, like dead firewood, and there were many small snakes drilled inside, almost using the bones as a nest. Senior, being so devastated, you have to suffer. Suchanga sighed, forced these little snakes out, and then burst them one by one. Just as he was finishing cleaning up the bones, he felt a message penetrate the sea of knowledge. It's this immortal king's. Thank you, young man, I have been buried here for 10,000 years. Devastated all day long, those pythons devouring my flesh and blood, digging up bones and sucking pith. I only had a faint trace of spirit, and I could only watch them tear my flesh, unable to do anything. Thank you, I can finally go with peace of mind now. The immortal king's voice was weak and erratic. When his strength was about to run out, he taught Suchunga another secret. In the Middle Ages, I once left a precious inheritance in a cave in Langya Mountain. Maybe it has not been excavated yet. After you leave my mausoleum, you immediately rushed there and took the inheritance, so that I can also be regarded as a heir, ha ha ha. The immortal king laughed heroically. At this moment, he suddenly sensed something, and made another voice of doubt. Hey, no, how is the black fog shrouded outside the mausoleum, and the appearance looks like an immortal mountain? No, there are ghosts. As soon as he said this, the last trace of the immortal king's strength was also exhausted, his spirit dissipated, and his voice stopped abruptly. Suchunga raised his eyebrows slightly. Listening to the words of this immortal king, it seems that the Tao One Holy Land has a great strangeness? What the hell is going on? At this time, Nangong Yuner stepped forward and said, Senior, this place is already empty, let's go back? Suchunga nodded, well, let's go. He pulled Su Lianyue and walked towards the outside world with Nangong Yuner. Following the road they had come, the four soon returned to the entrance of the mausoleum. Just arrived in the outside world, Suchunga glanced up at the sky, and his eyes froze. P.S. The background always sees readers asking why they are always updated in the morning and not updated at night. Many books are updated at night, and it is customary to refresh at night to see the update gone. Then the little author will answer, I update each time in advance. You can see the morning update half a day earlier. If you update at night, you can only see it at night. Of course, I can also choose to update at night, but I don't want to. Everyone wakes up in the morning and opens their eyes to see the latest chapter. Is this bad? Looking up, you will see a dark night sky, not even a trace of light. The sky was pitch black, and the black fog was completely shrouded, like the gaze of the abyss. God, it's already dark. What's going on? Suchunga felt very wrong. I vaguely remember that it was not long after entering the mausoleum. How could this already be dark? Gongzi. Su Lianyue gripped his hand tightly, her eyes scanning the surroundings vigilantly. Zhang Baichuan's back was cold, his teeth were trembling in his mouth, and he snorted, I remember that we entered the mausoleum in the morning, and it should be far from evening now. How is this already? Are there ghosts? Su Xianyue looked back at the mausoleum, her eyes solemn. Wasn't the snake demon in there cleared? Why hasn't it returned to normal? Here? Nangong Yuner was not shocked and said, maybe we miscalculated the time. Su Lianyue tightly grabbed Suchunga's right arm, put it in her arms, and said, Gongzi, anyway, let's leave here first. No, Nangong Yuner shook her head, looked at the top of the cliff wall, and said, the black fog above is too thick. If it is inhaled into the body, the consequences will be unimaginable. It is best to wait for the Holy Lord to come and pick us up. She continued, before leaving, the Holy Lord explained to me that he would come to pick us up at dawn, and I have a tent here, so I will sleep here tonight and wait until dawn. After saying this, everyone's originally doubtful emotions suddenly calmed down. I suddenly remembered that when I first entered the Holy Land, I accidentally inhaled a breath of black qi, resulting in a coma for 10 days and 10 nights. And I almost couldn't wake up. Zhang Baichuan said fearfully. Suchunga nodded and said, well, let's rest for the night first. Nangong. Yunner took out 4 tents, put them on the ground, and held them up one by one. Soon, the tents were all propped up, and the interior of each tent was about 7 or 8 square meters, which was very spacious. After setting up the tent, she opened her red lips lightly, looked at Su Chang'e, and warmly invited, "Senior, the slave family spent the night outside. For the first time, this wild mountain, the slave family is so scared in their hearts. The slave family wants to share a tent with you. Would you like to?" Her original flowers and tricks, flowers and snowy skin, at this moment, the tone is even more sultry, charming, people can't bear to refuse. Su Chang'e's eyes froze. Is this ready to lure me into being fooled with beauty and then take me away? Before he could speak, Zhang Baichuan next to him suddenly raised his hands and excitedly shouted, "Willing. Senior sister, I do." His whole face was red because of his excitement. The corner of Su Chang'e's mouth twitched. "Nima, worthy of being a reckless hero. You me." Nangong Yunner glanced at him coldly. Zhang Baichuan suddenly seemed to be splashed with a basin of cold water, full of enthusiasm, was extinguished, stood there awkwardly, and lowered his head. Then, Nangong Yunner looked at Su Chang'e, her eyes were full of charm, and there was a moving style overflowing, and she spat out pandan and said, "The slave family will serve the seniors well, I don't know what you think." Su Lianyue grabbed Su Chang'e a little, and quietly transmitted, "Gongzi, she is eyeing you, this is to harm you, you have to be careful." Read more novels for free on our website, tinyurl.com/2AA54Z8B. I know. Su Chang'e naturally knew that this python must not be well. The snake is cold-blooded, cunning, and changeable, and once it enters her gentle township, I am afraid that she will have to take her life to compensate. Gongzi, you go in and find a time to kill her. Su Xianyue's eyes turned cold at this time and added, Su Chang'e nodded, and then looked at Nangong Yunner, revealing an unruly smile, and said, "The beauty is warmly invited, then how can I refuse?" Nangong Yunner was overjoyed and said, "The slave family will definitely serve the seniors well." After that, she opened the entrance of the tent and invited, "Senior, please come in." Su Chang'e stepped in. Seeing him enter, Zhang Baichuan let out a self-ashamed sigh, "Only the strong can get beautiful women, and the ancients sincerely do not deceive me, Su." Lianyue glanced at him, her eyes were complicated, and then she didn't say anything, and entered her tent to sleep. She seemed to be sleeping, but in fact, the power of her soul permeated out. Staring at Nangong Yunner's tent, for fear that something would happen to Gongzi. After sighing for a while, Zhang Baichuan also entered another tent to sleep. Nangong Yunner is as charming as silk, with a variety of styles, and stirring people's hearts. "Okay, come on," Su Chang'e said with a silent smile. "Well, the slave family is here." Nangong Yunner Lian danced lightly, approached step by step, and came to Su Chang'e. "The slave family wants to kiss you." The words just fell. Suddenly, a long red tongue spat out from her mouth. The tip of the tongue is forked, like 2 blood-eating snakes. Suddenly, the atmosphere of the beautiful spring became cold, eerie, and silent. It is said that the hero is sad and beautiful. If this is the case, you will give your life here. Nangong Yunner recovered the nature of the snake. Click, the body split from the middle, a python head drilled out of it, and the blood basin opened like a terrifying abyss, tearing and covering towards Su Chang'e. He was greedy to swallow Su Chang'e. Su Chang'e was waiting for this moment, and as soon as his mind moved, the big Dipper 7-star sword appeared in his hand. Suddenly, the atmosphere in the tent dropped to freezing point, and the fierce sword light burst out along with the rolling killing machine. P.S. Thanks to Rain Emperor, Demon Dao, Hall Master Chen, Gu Liangxiu, Ice Phoenix God Sect who loves to eat roasted corn, ignorant shower, love to eat Ume papaya soup, forget, Zion Heman Jingxian, a male are who loves to read novels, Zhou who loves to eat braised yellow fish, fried heavenly gang. Heavenly selection, for the gift. Pure hand fighting, sincere thanks, courtesy is light. There are also some who are not on the list. Humble authors are remembered in their hearts, because of the space, so thank you next time. In addition, these 3, please don't keep books, it's very critical, please. Sting. Sting, la la. In the silent night, there was the sound of swords striking on the scale. Armor, and Mars splashed all around, piercing like lightning. Suchanga swung the Big Dipper 7-star sword, and a sword slashed at the python's huge head one after another, breaking her scale armor in an instant. And the blade drove straight in, deep into the flesh and bones 7 inches. And blood dripped. Senior, you are so ruthless, why are you so ruthless? The python head spat out words, and his voice was charming, as pleasant as a silver bell. Sound waves affect the surroundings, and the air ripples. Suchanga felt that his ears were confused for a moment, but it was only for a moment, and the next moment he disappeared without a trace, as if he was immune. Deep in the body, the Taichu Extreme Dao Code automatically operated, and a mighty aura gushed out. Psychic attack? Suchanga understood in an instant that this snake demon tried to use spiritual illusion to paralyze himself, but was immune to the Taichu Extreme Dao Code. Huh? Not good. The python found that the illusion was ineffective, exclaimed, withdrew the snake's head, and changed into the appearance of Nangong Yuner again, and a dagger appeared in his hand, extremely sharp, cold and bloody, stabbing towards Suchanga. Fine death. Suchanga slashed out with a sword, and the short soldiers were exchanged. Sparks splashed, and the dagger was cut into pieces in an instant. Nangong Yuner was shocked in her heart, hurriedly collected the killing opportunity, and said coquettishly, Senior, spare your life, the slave family just now had a momentary heart, lost every inch, please. In response to her was a sharp sword glow. Ugh. Nangong Yuner's face turned pale fiercely, and she fled out of the tent. In a panic and fled outside. Where to go? Su Chongsong sang and followed closely. The sound of fierce fighting had already alarmed Su Lianyue and Zhang Baichuan. Su Lianyue raised her hand and waved, and the rolling coercion instantly blocked all the way. And here, Zhang Baichuan still wondered what happened, slowly walked out of his tent, looked around, and was suddenly shocked. What's going on? The scene in front of him really made him unbelievable. He saw the senior holding a long sword, chasing a graceful figure to slash and kill. The figure was no match at all, and he was defeated, and it happened that this figure was very familiar to him. It's Senior Sister Yuner. Zhang Baichuan recognized it at once, and immediately gave birth to a heart of pity and cherishing Jade, and his heart was furious. Why did the senior chase the senior sister to slash and kill? Senior. Why did you kill senior sister? An angry questioning voice came from his mouth. Suchanga shouted while chasing and killing, she is a snake demon. What? Snake demon? Zhang Baichuan's eyes flashed with incredulity. Read more novels for free on our website, tinyurl.com/2aa54z8b. How can it be? Senior sister is so beautiful, how can she be a cold-blooded snake demon? Yu wants to spray blood, is it that senior sister didn't serve you? Well, you have to fight and kill, really a negative man, because senior sister likes you. Suchanga shouted, see for yourself. He slashed at Nangon Yunar with a sword, and immediately cut the skin of her body and opened the flesh. The snake demon ate pain, could not maintain the human form. The human body suddenly turned into a snake body. The long snake body rose up, looking down on the earth condescendingly. This? Zhang Baichuan was stunned. But the next moment, a long sigh of regret spat out from his mouth. Alas! It's a pity. Hearing his long sigh, Suchanga was stunned. This Nima is really ruthless. If you want to meet the python, what a hero! A heaven-leaning sword appeared in Su Lianyua's hand, and a silver-white sword. Radiance was like a horse, lighting up the night sky and slashing away. Oops, a hint of despair appeared in the snake demon's green pupils. Poof! The sword light slashed, like a decay, instantly cutting its scale armor, and the broken bones mixed with blood splashed everywhere. Then, its huge body fell to the ground, lifeless. Gongzi, see if she is dead, in case there is fraud. Su Xianyue drank heavily. Suchanga immediately stepped forward. Before he came closer, a figure suddenly flashed in front of him. It turned out to be Zhang Baichuan. The strength in his body was exhausted. A palm stroked on the python's tail, and the electric flint dragged the python's body away quickly, and disappeared in a blink of an eye. Far away, Suchanga heard him laughing excitedly. Ha 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 ha, senior sister. Nangong, even if you are a snake, I like you. I grass. The corner of Suchanga's mouth twitched fiercely, and he sighed with shame. Brother, I admire you in my heart. He was about to catch up when the corner of his eye suddenly moved, and he sensed something. In the afterglow of the left eye, I saw the grass not far away swinging without wind, and there were shadows floating and floating. Su Xianyue also sensed something at this time. 20 degrees northwest on the left, a large group of people and horses were quietly dormant there. The undercurrent was surging, and the murderous opportunity was everywhere. There is an ambush. Suchanga turned his head, looked there, and shouted, what kind of person? Get out. P.S. The little author is fast-paced, never hydraulic. Every word in the text is useful. Don't look too fast, it's easy to miss things.